Good morning, students. Welcome to Adarsh Education Society Standard 4th. This is your teacher, Mrs. KANAN MODY, and today we will be doing subject English. So, students, today we will begin with Unit 2, poem number 9, Time for Everything. Let us begin with the poem. I shall first recite the whole poem. Poem number 9, Time for Everything. There's a time to run and a time to walk. There's a time for silence, a time for talk. There's a time for work and a time for play. There's a time for sleep at the close of the day. There's a time for everything you do, for children and for grown-ups too. A time to stand up and a time to sit, but see that the time and the actions fit. So students, this whole poem is about time. Okay students? Now I will explain you the meaning of the poem. So students, let us begin with the poem. Now students, in this poem, what poet wants to tell us? The poet wants to tell us that there is a time for everything which we do in our life. Okay? That means that whatever we do, that has to be done at the correct time. Now, what does that mean? I will explain. Now, students, when I tell you that you all know that we have four meals during a day, right? We have breakfast in the morning, lunch at afternoon, then supper in the evening, and we eat our dinner at night. Okay. So, as you can see, that there is a time which has been specified for all these four meals. Okay. Breakfast has to be done at the morning only. You cannot do it in evening or at night. Okay. Similarly, lunch is taken in the afternoon only. So so you can see that there is a time given for every meal, right, now students? In the similar way, whatever activity you do, that has to be done at the correct time. Suppose you are in morning school, okay? So you cannot go to school in the afternoon, right, my students? There's a time for school also, there's a time to play also. So everything has to be done at the correct time. Okay, so this is what the poet wants to tell in the poem. Now I will explain you the first two lines which has been mentioned in the poem. I will first read out. Okay, there's a time to run and a time to walk. There's a time for silence, a time for talk. So, students, what is the poet saying? That there is a time to run. Now, what is the time to run? When is the time to run? Now, suppose you are playing any game or you have taken part in running race competition in your school. Okay, so during that time, what you will do? You will have to run, right, my students? You cannot walk during that time, right? So, so that is why the poet is saying that there is a time to run. Now, what next is saying? That there is a time to walk. Now, where you will walk, students? Okay, when you are at your crowded street. Okay, when there is a lot of public on the street, you cannot run during that time, right? Second, when you are in school, you are walking in the corridor. Okay, that time also you have to always walk. You should never run, otherwise you may fall down and you may get hurt, right? So during the crowded during in the crowded street or in the corridor or on the stairs, okay, that time you should all walk and not run. Understood, students? Now the second line, there's a time for silence, a time for talk. Now students, where you have to keep silence, okay, when you have to keep silence. Now suppose you are visiting to library, okay, or or any hospital, or when the teacher is teaching something in the classroom, that time you have to maintain silence. You should not talk during that time. Okay, students? Now when you have to talk, there's a time to talk also. So when you will talk, when teacher asks you any question, that time you will have to talk. When you are participating in any debate competition, when you have to share your views with everyone, okay, that time you have to talk. You cannot keep silence at that time. Understood, students? So that is why the poet is saying that there is a time for silence, a time for talk. Now students, let us move to the next two line. There's a time for work and a time for play. There's a time for sleep at the close of the day. Now, students, as I told you, that there's a time for everything you do, right? So, there's a time for work also. Now, for example, when teacher has given you any written work in the classroom, or teacher has told you that you have to study quietly, do your work quietly. So that time you are expected to do that work only. You cannot play during that time, right? Now, students, if you when you're copying any notes from the blackboard, or when teacher has given you any homework, okay, so that is your time to work. You are not supposed to play during that time, okay, students. So that is the time for work. And now, what is the time for play? When you will play in the school, when there is a PT period or any games period, okay, or during the recess time, you can play, right? When you are at home, there is a time when you go to the playground to play games. At that time, you are expected to play, okay? But you cannot play the whole day, right? Now, students, you have to study also, you have to do your homework also. So that is why it is said that there is a time for work and a time for play. Now, the next line, there's a time for sleep at the close of the day. Now, students, will you sleep the whole day? No, na students. Everyone sleeps at the close of the day. At the close of the day means at night. Okay, so there is a time to sleep also. There is a time for sleep also. Understood, students? Now, students, let us move to the next two lines. There's a time for everything you do, for children and for grown-ups too. Now, students, as I told you, that there's a time where you have to work, you have to play, you have to walk, run. So, these all things that implies for grown-ups also, for adults also, okay? Even we have to follow the same timetable, right? We have to also follow the same rules which children follow, okay? Now, suppose your parents, they are going to office, okay, so they have to reach office on time. Suppose they are doing 9 to 5 shift, okay, their office is from 9 to 5, then they are expected to reach office at 9 o'clock, okay, they should be there on time, okay. So even they are expected to eat the breakfast on time, their lunch on time, everything the elders will also do on time, okay, students. So that is why they are saying that there's a time for everything you do, and it is for children as well as for adult. Everyone has to follow the rules of time. Understood, students? Now, students, let us move to the last two lines of the poem. A time to stand up and a time to sit, but see that the time and the actions fit. Now, students, they are saying that there is a time to stand up and time to sit. When you are expected to stand up, students, suppose you are in school, when you will stand up? During the national anthem, during the prayers in the morning, you will have to stand up, right? When any teacher enters your classroom, or when the principal sir or madam, whenever they enter the classrooms, you will have to stand up and wish them, right, my students? So these are the time during the school hour when you are expected to stand up, right? Now, so this is called the time to stand up, okay. There's a time to stand up and a time to sit. Now, when teacher tells you that sit down, students, then you have to sit. When teacher is teaching you something, you cannot stand in the between, right? During that time, you will have to sit down quietly. Understood, students? So that is why they are saying that there is a time to stand up and a time to sit. But see that the time and the actions fit. That means you have to always see that you have to always take care that the time and the action match. That means at what time which action you are doing, okay, that should match with one another, right? When it is expected that in the morning you are supposed to have your breakfast, okay, so your time, that is in the morning, and what is your action? Eating breakfast. They should match with one another, right, my students? So that is why they are saying that you should see that the time and the action fit means that they match with one another. Understood, students? So this is the meaning of the whole poem, and it says that everything has to be done at the correct and the appropriate time. Okay, students, that is the message of the given in the poem. Understood? So students, now let us recite the poem once again and write down the rhyming words given in the poem. Okay students, let us begin. There's a time to run and a time to walk. There's a time for silence, a time for talk. Now students, which are the rhyming words over here? Walk, talk. Understood? Now let us move further. There's a time for work, a time for play. There's a time for sleep at the close of the day. Students, which are the rhyming words in this two line? Yes, play, day. Okay, note it down. Now next line. There's a time for everything you do, for children and for grown-ups too. Now which are the rhyming words? Do, to. A time to stand up, a time to sit, but see that the time and the actions fit. Which are the rhyming words over here? Sit and fit. Understood students? Now students, you will write this whole poem in your notebook. You will learn and write it. Okay, you will write this whole poem in your notebook, and also you will write down the rhyming words which has been given in this poem. Understood students? Thank you students. So I hope that you understood and you enjoyed the poem very much.